Sometimes you have every intention of leaving high security and diving into a wormhole, just for New Eden to tell you not today in EVE Online. Who would have thought you could be pulling in 600 million per hour in high security? I've had some decent sleeper cache sites in the past, but not an almost never-ending treasure trove of them that is about to go down. I was about to jump into a Class 1 wormhole that I had already scanned down, when I noticed there were some new signatures that had spawned in this system. One of them ended up being a limited sleeper cache. While these tend to be on the lower side of paying for sleeper cache sites, they are rather easy and quick to run. While the container before this is usually not that great, and it was not. I hacked the remote pressure next and headed towards the container that is protected by a gas cloud. While nothing insane, it was a great start to this adventure. It's a container that's always worth going after, unlike some of the others I'd be just to fully clear the site. I've learned to always take my time with the last container of the site. It has the most loot, and it can be a bit tricky. While I did not get any blueprints out of this limited sleeper cache, any time you can get over 65 million is rather decent for them and more than worth my time. I had every intention of checking out that wormhole. I, however, decided I wanted to dump off some loot first. Naturally, another limited sleeper cache had just spawned in a system on my way back. Better than expected first container of the site. I always hope it's good luck when you loot something special right away. A 36 million container is more what I'm talking about. Not unexpected, a bunch of the other containers in the site were not that great. At least I'd get 2 decent more. This last container was a bit strange. Usually it's the biggest of the site. This time, however, it was not. Still, I cleared over 60 million from this one. At this point, with how many sleeper caches I was already finding, I decided to explore it around the local area a bit more to see if I could find another one. Sure enough, next I found a superior sleeper cache site. While a little painful to run, these can be quite insane. I'm also not the only one out scanning for sites. So I need to quickly get the signature to despawn by hacking a certain container, as I'd like this site all to myself. Almost 50 million out of the first container. Usually, I like to get the turret going first before heading back for this one. I wanted to make sure, in case the other person in here scanned this one down, that I got it. Since I'd need to be docking up for repairs during some of this, I ended up bringing an alt in here to hold the site open. Now that the turret did the work of clearing this room out, all these containers are mine for the taking. I'd even loot some blueprints along the way. Not the best ever blueprint, but every bit helps. While these containers can be a big hit or miss, I was rather impressed by how amazing a few of them were. Again, not a crazy blueprint from this one either. It was, however, another decent container. I'd also be making a little extra off the blueprints I've been getting. Once in a while, like this container, you end up getting a blueprint that is not worth crafting at the time. Since they are just copies with limited runs, I just toss them all into a giant container that I check every once in a while. Sometimes prices move enough that they become worth crafting and attempting to sell. Clearing almost 200 million after blueprint copies out of this single room is rather decent. Next, I headed back into the main room to reduce the damage from the gas cloud, protecting the remaining containers I'd go after. This part is always a little annoying. I've attempted to configure my Anathema a few times for dealing with the amount of damage the gas cloud is doing. Even when I'm able to tank the damage, I lack the capacitor to do so long term. So I just ended up sticking with using a shield to buy myself some extra time. If I can get 2 containers per warp back here before needing to dock up to restore my shield, I consider that a win. These containers are more than worth how annoying in going after, as any one of them could have another 50 million in loot or a blueprint copy that could make me hundreds of millions in profit. Over 300 million from a single site is a good day. Yet the adventure is not over just yet. It did not take looking around for long to find a standard sleeper cache. I'll admit I'll have to cheat a little to get this one done. My Anathema is just not up for it without taking in a lot more risk than I'd like. Thankfully, I got a second account to help me out. That second account, however, is not really set up for dealing with stuff like this, so he is more limited than I'd like. At least having a second account gives me some options when dealing with a site like this. while the first couple of containers don't usually give you much. This next one is about to. Now the fun part starts. If I get 60 seconds to hack the alarm. If you fail, you need to get out or move fast enough away from the impending clouds. Even if you do fail, it's not a total failure of the site. As there are still containers, you can go for them. Things are just a little trickier if you do. Naturally, I ended up failing. This was perhaps my first or second time ever failing this one at this stage. While I did sneak back in for the other room of containers, it was nothing special.
Drive active.
Would you believe it if I told you I found another superior sleeper cache? Me neither, but here is the proof. This time, I knew I had the place all to myself. I started in the turret room, clearing that out. Then I went back for this container. While it would not save me a lot of time, it was well worth doing so. This room would end up not being as amazing as the one in the other superior sleeper cache site I had found. Still, it's a decent chunk worth several of the limited sleeper sites. Since the first part of this site was a bit lacking, I was hoping there would be some insane loot in these last containers I'd be getting. While there are other rooms in this site, this ship has its limitations. All in all, over 200 million from this site. The blueprint copies were not great, but I'd make a little extra from them.
Docking request accepted.
The final loot. Not all of it was shown, as I did do some site running in low security that ended up not being worth it. Any day you can make 600 million an hour in a frigate is a great day.